Everyone, hope you guys are doing well today. I don't know if you guys heard me, but good morning, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Just gonna see the YouTube comments so far. Nice to see 14 of you guys here. Also gonna try to fix my lighting as well. It's a little too yellow. See if that improves things. First of all, thank you, Henry. Show us the kit. Here we are. Here we are. So first of all, JP, hi Fran, hope you're all good. Hope you're all good too. Sell Bowen to Sun for a -4. I don't really love the move, if I'm being honest. I do love Sun independently for this game week, but for a -4, if you're absolutely certain that you're gonna captain him, then I'm okay with the move. But if you're not gonna captain him, I probably wouldn't do the -4. That's probably how I would justify it to you. Matthew, hope you're well. Good morning. And then JP also asked keep Watkins or sell to Awani. I'd definitely keep Watkins in this game still. And then Matthew asks Estupiñán or Cash. I think if you're asking just about starting this week, I would definitely start Cash over Estupiñán. So that's my answer. But if it's a different question, feel free to sort of rephrase that. Renzo, good morning. Adam, Madison or Haaland for captain? I would still go with Haaland, to be honest. I'm only interested in a Haaland or Son captaincy this week. I can't go to Son. It would be a -4 for me. I don't think it's worth a -4 because the difference with the Bowen situation, for example, is Bowen actually has 2 bad fixtures in a row, whereas I'd be moving out of someone who has a good fixture this week, right? So it doesn't really make too much sense to me on paper. For a hit at least, because I've done my 1 free transfer to Udogi, so that's the context as well if you guys needed that one. So let's have a look at. Thank you, Ahmed. Congratulations. Appreciate that. Just heard Nunez is a doubt. Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is with Liverpool right now, you still ultimately have effectively 4 attackers, I would say, at random times competing for 2 spots. So the risk probably isn't worth it. And actually, when you're looking at the cost of Salah, for example, he might still be worth it despite his sort of extremely high price. And ultimately, I'd probably still go to Salah at this point in time, right? If we're talking about game week 8, maybe even moving out of Haaland, Salah could be worth it. The issue with someone like Darwin is you can get a lot of upside, but you're never going to really know when you're going to get it. So, for example, he can get 2 starts, then he can be benched. And that's sort of the issue with Darwin. Dobber says the correct move is Saka. I mean, look, Saka to Son. I know a couple people have done it. I think Praz has done the move. I'm not sure if any other people have done the move themselves, but I would be concerned doing that move for a -4. I like the move as an independent free transfer, and I like the move particularly in game week 8, for example, moving Saka to Son, but not now for a -4. Rimzad says, is this a must buy? I don't think Son is a must buy at all. A lot of people will be buying Son. A lot of people are saying that you should buy Son, but they're not actually buying Son. And some people are also buying Son and they're not captaining Son. So as you can see, some people are still scared about the threat of Haaland, which is very reasonable. And if, in my opinion, I'm in the camp where you have to captain him because the way I see it is Son has 2 bad fixtures after this. You know, highline this, highline that. The reality is Son scores a lot versus weaker teams. Everyone does. This is how football works. If you just take an analytical approach and try to remove yourself from the tactical side, because yes, of course, Burnley played a high line, but what are they? They're a very weak team. And that's my opinion on that. So as far as, let's say, Arsenal and Liverpool, you have 2 bad fixtures right after that, where United have 2 good fixtures on paper. And it's better if you have 2 good fixtures of Son. And how can you get 2 good fixtures of Son? You've got to captain him. That's sort of my thoughts on that. But you don't have to go Son. And I don't think, unless you're in a luxury position, right? You got 2 free transfers. You don't know what to do with your team. then go for Son, because there's a good punt to be done. But for me, I had a really bad defense. Like, imagine if I played Chilwell, Gusto, Saliba. That would be still a very weak defense. Everyone has an away game. No one has good clean sheet odds. And yes, I've got 2 attacking fullbacks, but still, the value that Udogie has over a Gusto or over a Saliba in my team is gigantic. So that's why I've gone with Udogie as my free transfer. And I didn't see myself having issues, right, in game weeks 6 and 7 from a defensive point of view, because all I need to do is bring in Trippier. And Estupiñán has a good game on game week 6. So I'm pretty much covered. And thanks to the news that Reece James is out until the next international break, potentially, I'm in a good position. All right, anyways, I'm going to try speed through some questions. If you guys can also like and subscribe, that would be fantastic. Thank you guys for being here. So let's quickly go through. I'm so sorry, by the way, Anish, Krishnan. Thank you so much for being a member. Welcome to Captain. I'm not sure why YouTube didn't update that earlier, but thank you once again, and glad to have you aboard. I will quickly speed through some questions, so as I said. So Tiago says, morning, beautiful people. Morning to you. JP says, would you ever add a score prediction? I could do that, but I just think, you know, I'm not some sort of fortune teller, so it's not really worth it for me. I can tell you how I feel the games will go, but that also, you know, I look at analytics when I specifically when I make my transfers, and also just to make sure that I remain objective sometimes, because my subjective opinions aren't going to be the, you know, end all be all for the decisive factor for my transfers and things like that. Gerbicide says, not sure what to do with Luis Diaz. He's not playing this week, plus his numbers aren't great to begin with. Yeah, I mean, that's why Luis Diaz was always a differential for me, even though he had a very good Bournemouth game. I think if you got the chance to move to a Spurs player, absolutely you should do it. Ahmed says, sell Foden to Son or upgrade forward to Alvarez. It depends. I mean, do you not have a good forward to play this week? Is the question I'd ask. Because I do like just playing Foden. Is Sterling worth captaining? In my opinion, no. It's still an away game. BL says, Nicholas Jackson alternative. Look, honestly, I would still strongly consider keeping Nicholas Jackson. If I own Nicholas Jackson this week, I would not be transferring him out. That's just my opinion on that. But if you really want to transfer him out, and you have to, I think you've got to go towards someone like an Alvarez or someone like a Morris. Save yourself some cash for the future. Because even though Watkins is very nice, I'd only really consider Watkins in game week 8, and I don't really be spending too much money on the forwards for the time being. But I really think you can hold Nicholas Jackson. Carl says, bench Foden, Alvarez, or Mbumo. Mbumo easily I'd bench. Salah's good captaincy shout. I agree with that too, Aaron. I mean, I didn't really talk about Salah as a captaincy shout because not too many people own Salah. But if you own Salah and you really want to go differential, he could be the one. I mean, he could actually end up being the highest scoring player this week, and I wouldn't be surprised. It's still an away game, but it's Wolves. Morning, we saw a cash start. Definitely a cash start. Anish says, you want Bowen, don't have budget for either Madison or Son, hold Bowen or move to someone else. My mids are Mbumo, Saka, Salah, Sterling, and Bowen. See, that's a tough situation. I think, unfortunately, if you think about it this way, Eze doesn't have a great fixture on paper this week. And then actually someone like, who else is sort of, I mean, you could look at Andreas, you could look at Gibbs White, but that would really force you into a structure where you're going for 3 attackers, 3 forwards in specific. So maybe you can just hold Bowen. I would probably ask the question, you know, who your attackers are as well. Matthew says, I feel like Son is being overrated and the people who have captained him will regret it and fall down ranks. Look, I'm never going to blame people for going against Haaland captaincy. It's West Ham away versus Sheffield United at home. This is one of the worst fixtures possible. I mean, it's not one of the worst fixtures possible for City, sorry, but I mean, this is one of the best fixtures possible for Son. And it's still not a great fixture for Haaland. We know, if you just look at home and away statistics, I mean, I would ask you to look at last season. How many goals did City score home? How many goals did City score away? I believe it was something like 60 to 30 something. So they're almost 1.7 times better at home. So you've got to factor those sort of things in. This is a good calculated risk, in my opinion, if you're going for Son. And I did it multiple times. I did Salah versus Nottingham Forest. Took a massive L versus Haaland. In Game Week 15 last season, I even sold Haaland out of my team because we got the news that he was benched. And I played 2 weeks straight without Haaland, whereas the rest of the world just kept him. And I even sat in a pub where everyone captained Haaland in Game Week 16, and I captained Salah with 0% of Haaland. And I've never sweat as much in my life, I can tell you that. But it's worth it sometimes. You can take these calculated risks. Bar says start Matoma or Colwill or Estupinian. I'd probably start Matoma, to be quite honest. And then Colwill in that order. JP, your general thoughts on Son Holland? I mean, I've sort of explained it. Lila says, Fran the man, hope you're good. Who would you bench? Mbumo Cash as I'd probably bench Mbumo. Vasily says, I start Gusto over Estupinian. Makes sense. Saliba and Chilwell are the other two. Yep, that makes sense. I agree with your decision. Would you start Ruben Diaz? Ooh, sorry. Let's see what's going on here. Have I missed a question? Tommy Talks, nice to see you around. Hope you're doing well. Start Matoma. I think I've answered that question. Let's see. Multi-Live Evil says Salah and Son for Saka and Rashford for free. Honestly, it's not a bad move. But I don't really like the idea of going from Saka to Rashford. Is that what's going on? Oh, sorry, you're going Salah and Son. How's that even possible? How do you have the budget for that? Matoma, Sterling, and Foden are the mids. I mean, I feel like it's not worth it because Matoma has a bad fixture. You're taking out two players who have good fixtures to go for Salah and Son, who are great, by the way, better fixtures, just a bit. But I don't see how it's worth it because you're still keeping, for example, Matoma, who has a bad game on paper. Matthew says, what game week would you bring Walker in? I'd play him this week, but I wouldn't really be thinking about bringing him in at this point in time. I sort of said last week in one of my videos that if you were bringing in a City defender last week made sense. Unfortunately, they didn't keep a clean sheet, but the thing is, when you look at the City fixtures, and we can have a look at it right now, I mean, it gets bad. It gets bad. Like, I'm not expecting many clean sheets when you're facing Arsenal, Brighton, Man United, the only good fixture being Bournemouth, and then Chelsea, Liverpool, Spurs. All tough games on paper. Other questions. What game week? Oops, sorry. But the opportunity to get rid your team of all Arsenal is too good to pass up. I mean, but why is getting rid of our Arsenal assets a good opportunity, if that makes sense? Is probably what I would ask you. I'm in burning the free transfer territory. Okay, don't burn a free transfer. I mean, we have such bad goalkeepers. I'm sure you must have something to do. Even forwards, for example. Maybe get a double game week on your bench if you want to do that and just prepare a little bit ahead of time for game week 7 if you're in a burn territory. Dope Boy says, I want people to buy Son because they have 2 bad fixtures. I mean, that's the thing. Like, Son is a little bit of a short-term punt, in my opinion. I don't think he's bad because in reality, if he's truly on penalties and we see Son playing the way he is, as in being a central forward, that he's probably going to be a season keeper. But there is a bit of a punt to be made. He could still move to the left, and he might not have penalties. So these sorts of things, you'll have to sort of question that. And as I said, it sort of makes the punt worthwhile if you captain him this week. And if you don't, then you're sort of looking at one good fixture than 2 bad. Allison or Pope? I'd probably go with Allison, actually. Because you've got the Trent injury now, so maybe you don't really want to be spending too much money for a Liverpool defender. And you kind of capture that in Allison. And on top of that, Pope was a little bit expensive when you have someone like Botman or Burn around. Whereas you only really have Konate, but Konate is actually quite pricey too, in comparison to the Newcastle defenders, who actually provide a lot more value. Because players like Shaw and Trippier, for example, who are a little bit more pricey, do actually have attacking value. Konate doesn't really, apart from the occasional corner, which I remember he effectively had a tap in, right, versus Arsenal last season, and he didn't take it. That's sort of my memory of Konate. Foden to Son is a good idea. I think if it's a luxury transfer for you, yes, it is. But it doesn't need to be done, is what I would say. Okay, I'm actually missing out on a lot of questions. I'll probably start from the bottom now, unfortunately, just to capture some of the most recent questions. I'm just checking my vice captaincy and things like that, making sure everything I'm happy with. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't make too many changes at this point in time. So starting from the bottom questions, Alex says Salah, Madison, or Holland captain. If you've got Salah, I'd actually probably captain Salah. Keith says, hi, Fran. I've done Eze to Son for... Okay, that's a wonderful move. Should I do Shaw to Udogi for a hit? I don't think Shaw to Udogi for a hit is good. But actually, you've got Pinnock versus Newcastle, which is pretty bad. So Maybe the Udogi move is nice. Yeah, you could do it. I'd probably replace Pinnock basically. The thing is though, Pinnock will have two good fixtures after this, so you've got to think about that too. I kind of like the actual rotation between Udogi and Pinnock in that sense, if you've got Pinnock in your team. Alex, sorry. Emily says, should I upgrade one of my 4 million defenders for Chilwell with a -4? No, I don't think you should be going for Chilwell this week, to be quite honest. You have Estupiñán and Henry. Yep, those are two bad fixtures. I agree with that. I'd probably bench Henry, to be honest, because I still think Estupiñán's a bit more attacking. So when I'm looking at the situation here, look, I'd probably go find another defender over Chilwell. I mean, you can even go Gusto in the short term, save yourself a bit of money, maybe strengthen in the future, because I actually like Trippier more. Jaden says captain Son or Haaland. I'd actually captain Son, Salah, then Haaland in this order. Salah very close to Haaland, and I probably wouldn't captain Madison. Those are my thoughts on captaincy. You might not agree, and that's okay. But I think when you're thinking about also the risk that you have to take as a Salah captainer, maybe I'd probably still captain Haaland in that situation. But definitely, if I had Son this week, I would be captaining Son. Will Son outscore Jackson with? I mean, I can't confirm that. I think Jackson's got a great game on paper, so you never know. And I don't think he'll outscore Jackson by more than 4 points, but we'll see what happens. Georgie. Pranav says play patient or take risks. Generally, I don't really care about playing patient or taking risks. I just look at trying to maximize my points. So for example, when we look at our team this week, the reason why I haven't gone for Son is because I don't see the -4 being worth it when all the people going out for Son all have good fixtures, and it would be a -4 for me. As I was trying to explain, my biggest issue where I could easily, for example, improve, because if you think about the logic of this, right? If you go for Son this week and then you actually go out of someone like Rashford or someone like Saka, actually what you're doing is you're ensuring that this week is a bit better, right? Because you're moving out of a good pick to a great pick this week. And then actually the next week after that, you're actually owning a slightly worse pick than the person that you transferred out this week. So that's a different situation to something like the transfer where I went for Udogi, right? Because Udogi, I can actually just bench next week, right? So these Chelsea players, I can still play, for example, Chilwell next week. I can play Estupiñán next week. Saliba, I mean, I probably can't play him this next week, but what am I doing? I'm actually planning to go for Saliba to Trippier next week. So the idea really in terms of my transfers that I've planned ahead of time is that I always wanted to go Trippier. So the way I saw it was that Udogi was only covering basically a bad fixture for me where he's a huge improvement either of Gusto or Saliba, who I sort of put on, equal weighting is what I would argue. And the different situation is I probably don't want to be moving all my midfielders because I can't be going from, let's say, Son to back into another midfielder because I was down transfers due to owning some pretty poor picks at the beginning, injured players like Shaw, James, and then as I said, having to transfer out Havertz to Sterling as well in game week 3 where I got the 19 points. So I just like to maximize points, make sure that my team is as strong as possible, remove the weaknesses, and who knows? I mean, if Turner doesn't play, I've got a huge issue with Pickford, but yeah, I mean, probably what I'd have to do at that point is sort of just bear a bad Pickford fixture, versus Brentford, then actually keep him because he's got Luton Town. Think about wildcarding, of course, and then actually in the meantime as well get Trippier from Saliba, which would be basically setting out my team for game week 6, 7, 8, and not really create long-term problems for me. So I would say always try to maximize points. I don't really think any specific approach matters. I think just think about trying to remove weaknesses from your team, trying to strengthen your squad at all times. Try to think long term as well. Because the thing about Udogi is it's not that I'm only playing for game week 6. The idea is he's almost gonna be a keeper until maybe if I do a late wild card, then I can keep him for a very long time. For example, I can wild card maybe game week 18, something like that. So he's got a really good run of games after game week 7, and he'd be a fantastic asset to have. So I will says, have Botman, Gabriel, Chilwell, and Ake in defense. Should I play Mbeumo or Estupiñán? I'd play Mbeumo. Thoughts on how you think Awani? I mean, it's a great game for Awani, so I think he should do well. So that's my thoughts on that. Why don't I play Saliba instead of Mbumo? I just don't have that much faith in the clean sheet, to be quite honest with you. And I think when you have a situation where the clean sheet isn't super secure, and then Mbumo has a bad fixture on paper, at least he's on penalties, and at least he's a very good attacker with really good underlying stats. And Brentford so far have been the #1 attacker in the league. So that's sort of the upside that I want to capture by going for Mbumo. But I hear your point. They're very close. Even Gusto, for example, should be very close to Saliba. So it is actually up to you on what you think. There have been times where I play 4-4-2. I wouldn't actually blame someone for doing that, but I just think Mbumo is such a strong pick, even in the worst fixture possible. You know, he's potentially worth playing, and it's the same situations. For example, let's say if Haaland was playing, I don't know, something like Liverpool away, you'd still start him. You might not captain him, but that's kind of my general thought on that, if that can make sense. Bill, thank you so much for the donation. Hey, Fran, you legend. Is Madison a shout for captaincy here for Holland? Look, I've actually admittedly said, Bill, that I don't really love the Madison captaincy. Is he close to Holland in terms of my sort of expectation for how well they'll do this week? Yes. But is he, for me, in my head, is he expected to do better than Holland? Not really. And then actually, when you take in the risk of the effective ownership, I'd probably not take that risk. I think it's there in terms of the fixtures, but I do think, for example, Son, like if you look at goal scoring odds, for example, Son is around 15 percentage points above Madison to score. So that's a huge difference in terms of how you calculate, let's say, whether a Son captaincy could be better than let's say Haaland. And then in the context of Madison, because there's quite a big gulf in the goal scoring, and obviously even though Madison's such a great assister and obviously a great long shot taker, the difference for me is still Haaland is Haaland, and I probably wouldn't take that risk if I'm being honest. But at the same time, as I said, the expectations are similar. So who knows? If you want to sort of take the punt against the house, you know, I would credit you for doing it, but I probably wouldn't do that decision. Thank you guys as well for being here. Around 100 of you guys around. Really nice to see you guys on the stream. If you guys can like and subscribe, that would be lovely. Dan Nunn says, enough wildcard upside next week. I don't think so. I probably, if you're not wildcarding this week, I'd actually probably consider wildcarding Game Week 8 at the earliest next. Why bench Saliba? I'm not actually expecting clean sheets for my Chelsea or Arsenal defenders, and so I'd rather go for the attackers at that point. Thought on Pedro to Morris. I don't love the move this week because what I think is still it's Fulham away, and Fulham have been bad, but it's still an away fixture. And the way I see it is Morris is very good for Game Week 7, whereas João Pedro is probably better than Morris for Game Week 6. So actually, I do like the idea of just keeping Pedro and then playing him for Game Week 6, and then actually saving that transfer for Game Week 7 when you can go to Morris instead. Because you've already tanked the Pedro price drop. There's nothing else really to be done. Should you have at least one Spurs midfielder? I mean, I'm sitting here right now owning 0 Spurs midfielders. So what do you think my answer would be? I'd probably say no. Would you do Sterling to Son on a free? Yes, I would though, and that's the caveat as well. I probably would do Son to Sterling on a free. Theodore says start Gusto or Botman. I think because we don't know if Botman's sort of nailed, I'd still actually start Gusto. So that's my opinion on that. With 2 free transfers, should you look at something like Gabriel to Trippier or Odegaard to Mbumo? I like Gabriel to Trippier. I wouldn't be going out of Odegaard to Mbumo this week. That's for sure. I think Odegaard is a better fixture than Mbumo. Dennis says he's got to bench 1. Saliba, Gabriel, Estupiñán. That's tough. Look, I'd probably bench Estupiñán and just hope that Arsenal get a clean sheet. I know I'm sitting here benching Saliba, but you can still see that I've benched Saliba ahead of Estupiñán. So that's sort of my order of thinking. Start Mitoma or Colwell or S2. I'd start Mitoma, just go for the attacker. Enough. Martinelli or Szoboszlai. I don't like Szoboszlai now. I think it's a huge differential. I think you can wait a little bit more. I'd probably just keep Martinelli. Rashford captain. I'm not seeing it, to be honest. I like Brighton have been very, very poor on defense, but United have a lot of issues in their team. And I'm not sure if, let's say, they're an attack that I would be so invested in. Trippier for Saliba. I think that makes a lot of sense as a move, Coder. If you can easily get to Trippier this week, he would be the type of transfer that I would be looking towards. Now, I actually wanted to go for Udogi because I didn't really have any plans. For example, think about it. If you look at my team this week, if I didn't go for Son, I definitely wouldn't be going for Son next week. So the idea was Son's only going to be a transfer in Game Week 8. Morris is probably going to be my transfer Game Week 7. And then Game Week 6, I've actually got nothing to do. So the plan is Trippier for me next week. But if you can go 1 week early, I wouldn't mind that. Cash, for me, Cash, Trippier, and Udogi are good sort of transfers this week on paper. But with the situation with Udogi and Cash, you've got to think about who covers for these two players when they've got bad fixtures in Game Week 6 and 7. Ismanu, thank you. Good luck to you as well this week. Good luck to everyone as well this week. I'm sorry I've been able to capture everyone's questions. There's actually a lot more comments than usual, so thank you guys, of course, for the support. Really love you guys for being around, and still, hopefully, some of my answers are helping to answer other people's questions. Ramsdale or Turner? I'd probably still play Turner, honestly. Should I invest in Alisson or go for a cheaper? I like Leno, to be honest. If you've got Leno and Areola, I think the pair is still really strong. I'd probably do that. Maddie said Jackson out for Alvarez. I don't think it's worth a free transfer. FPL Aguero, hope you're having a good day. Same to you. Got 2 free transfers, no idea what to do. You're planning to take out Turner, Johnstone, Saliba. Is it Saliba to Trippier or something like that? Or Saliba to, let's say, a Spurs defender? If so, makes sense. If you're looking for a goalkeeper, I mean, I'd probably go for Leno. But it's tough, though, because the issue is if you go for Leno and Turner, then actually the rotation isn't very good. But so maybe you actually you might want to go Sanchez, potentially. You could also go for a double game week keeper, right? Like someone like Trafford or Kaminsky, but it's tough. I don't think there's too many good, for example, single game week keepers that are very good as a transfer this week. Because the only one who has actually a good fixture on paper, I would say, is Turner. And I'd probably actually keep Turner this week, so I'd probably focus your moves elsewhere. João Pedro replacement was 7.2 million. Honestly, if you really want to replace Pedro this week, I'd go for Alvarez still. Fran here. Fran, big like here. Onana, Chilwell, Gabriel, and Udogi midfield. Sterling, Madison, and Bruno, Saka, and Rashford, and Holland. Very strong team. I would just enjoy this week. Kieran, would you start Estupiñán or Wisa? Probably Wisa. Jackson to Alvarez or Sterling to Szoboszlai. I don't like Sterling to Szoboszlai at all, to be honest. This is a good Sterling fixture. I would keep him. I wouldn't transfer any of those two players, honestly. I wouldn't overreact. That's my first thought. But if you have to do one, I'd probably prefer Jackson to Alvarez if you have to do one. I really wouldn't, though. Richarlison to Son or Madison. Definitely Richarlison to Son. Fulham defender for start. Yeah, you could do that. But, I mean, I would only really consider Leno. Because the thing about Leno is, even though Fulham are such a bad defense, at least he can make saves. But what can Fulham defenders do when they can't make saves? Not much, really. They can only concede. Obviously, I'm joking because Tim Ream, for example, scored for City. But you get my point. There aren't too many attacking fullbacks or attacking center backs that I really like for this Fulham team. So it's just Leno. Etta says, just wanted to say really happy for you both in FPL Start and more importantly, personal life. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Hope you're doing well too in your personal life or FPL. And yep, best of luck to you. Start Ederson or Turner. I'd probably start Ederson actually. Clean sheet odds are a little bit higher. Jalrossi says, hi, can't get Son in for Foden as a 0.1. You got 2 free transfers, so you could go Archer to Mubama. Whoa, I don't really like Archer to Mubama, but I get your point. I just think that you're wasting 2 free transfers to just effectively do 1 free transfer in, and it kind of is hurting your team, because what happens if you need the additional free transfer next week? I don't really like the idea of it. I'm sorry about that. And Archer, I really like having a good bench in FPL. Now, I'm sitting here right now talking to you with Taylor in my team, but at least I haven't taken a price drop with Taylor. That was the point of going for Taylor. And actually, if I quickly walk you guys through my transfer plans. So my plans are game week 6, right? I go Trippier, yeah? And then game week 7, I go Morris. What am I doing? Sorry. Let me reset this. Am I crazy? Why can't I do this? No, I can't go Morris. Yeah, sorry. I went a bit crazy. Yeah, so game week 6, probably go Trippier. Game week 7, probably go Morris. And then, enjoy this lineup here. So this is the idea for my team in the future. And then I'd probably be wildcarding in the short term if I go for this Morris punt. Now, if I don't take the Morris punt, I probably wouldn't wildcard, actually. I'd probably wait for a much longer wildcard. And that's sort of the idea. So it really depends. But the move for Trippier is absolutely locked in, sort of in my head, at least for Game Week 6. The Timinator says, hey, Fran, I don't have Son or Madison. Have to start SPN this week with 2 free transfers. Look, with 2 free transfers, I'd probably fix your defender situation for sure. Shard is actually a really nice shout, I would say. If you can do both, though, I would probably do it because there is enough upside. Because what I would say, for example, the standard Game Week 6 move is to go for a Newcastle defender. If you don't go for a Newcastle defender this week, then you can actually just save that transfer next week. But if you're not actually doing the transfer, or you're actually already doing it, then maybe you can do both. Madison or Holland captain? I'd probably go Holland, sorry. Madison's very close to me, but the effective ownership just makes it better for me to go with Holland. Do you think it's too late to bring in Gusto? I do think so. Just because I feel like Pochettino, left a little bit seeds of doubt where maybe Reece can recover early, maybe he can recover later, but you really don't know. And ultimately, you probably have Chilwell on your team, is my guess, and that kind of makes the situation tough. Do you start Alvarez if you have Foden? Whoa. What do you mean? Are you suggesting benching one of them? Is that the problem you have in your team? I'd probably start Alvarez, actually. What about Alvarez? Is it good to start? Yeah, I mean, it absolutely is good to start Alvarez. I'm starting Alvarez myself. So we got the Grealish injury, which is confirmed. SLD Brent, I've already answered your question, so please don't spam in chat. I mean, you can captain Madison if you really want to, but I'm probably going to be suggesting a Holland captaincy for you. In your interest. But sorry, I'm gonna have to put you in a timeout. Rashford captain on his favorite left side. I mean, look, Henry. We have spoken about this, and Brighton are a very bad defense, but I probably wouldn't do it. If you want to do it, I'd credit you for going for it, but I would be concerned about making that move. I just think Haaland's still got a great game, and Brighton Brighton are one of the few teams that I would actually generally say where their defense looks as good as it looks versus weaker teams. That's not really normal to say, but truly, the way they kind of open themselves up to some weaker teams and try to dominate them, it does concern me. Hoyland captain Gerbicide, you are an absolute differential. Good luck to that. But I mean, if you, let's say, ask the question whether you should Hoyland captain, I'd probably answer the same way that I did to Henry, if we're being honest. Daniel says, please advise second forward Game Week 5 to 8. Planning, okay, so a short-term 3 game week forward. I'm trying to think in my head who would actually be. Because I think the idea is on Game Week 8, you'd probably want to go into Watkins, right? So we're just looking for a forward who covers the next few weeks. Unfortunately, Alvarez does have that Arsenal fixture. I mean, are you wildcarding on Game Week 8? Let me have a look again at the question. No, you're planning to wildcard Game Week 9. So unfortunately, that sort of invalidates Alvarez for me, potentially. It's a good question, actually. I mean, I think Isaac's minutes are very low, so that's the problem. I mean, honestly, I'd probably still answer Alvarez, right? You could, for example, take the punt of Hoyland, because actually Game Week 5 to 10 is very nice for Hoyland if he's a starter, because you've got Brighton, Burnley, Crystal Palace, I think, and then Brentford, Sheffield United. So, yeah, let me have a look. Sorry. Yeah, so those are the fixtures. And actually, Hoyland could be a good punt, right? A good sort of 5 game week punt for you. So maybe Hoyland would be my answer. But if you're looking for, let's say, a budget option, I'd still go Alvarez for sure. But as you can see, Alvarez tough fixtures 8 and 9. So the City fixtures start poorly, a little bit earlier than Hoyland's. Play Diaz or Dean? I'd probably play Dean. Try to capture some attacking upside there as well. Darwin in if he's starting? Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, if Darwin starts, you always want to start him. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I'd probably pass up on him. Look, for me, he's one of the few fullbacks in football, despite actually assisting game week 1, where I would say he's generally just not a good attacker. Like, generally just not. And thank you guys so much for being around as well. If you guys could like and subscribe, that would be lovely for today's stream. Foden or Mbumo? I'd probably play Foden, if I'm being honest. But if you're talking about a transfer in this week, I'd probably not transfer either of them in. J Ward 10 says Eze to Madison and Gabriel to Shar. I kind of like keeping Eze, but if you have to go Madison, that's fair. I mean, I wouldn't want to take a hit, basically. I also don't like Pickford to Pope. Sorry, excuse me. I also don't like Pickford to Pope. I'd probably roll that second transfer. I would just start Turner this week. Hope for the best with Pickford. Hopefully that you capitalize Pickford game week 7 and then deal with him later. And then as far as, let's say, Eze to Madison, you could go for that move, but you don't need to do that. Henry, I can give you a confirmation bias if you really want it, but hold with Charleston, probably. I mean, you could, but I wouldn't really advise it. I mean, I would have sold with Charleston probably 2 weeks ago, if I'm being honest, but that's up to you. Immortal says West Ham could defend for City like how they defend against Brighton, Holland's way, so if there's a week to go different. I mean, I agree. I would go for a Son captaincy. I'm just saying that I think Madison and Holland's close. Like, a tough fixture for Holland is not the same as a tough fixture for Madison. So that's why we're saying in a good fixture for Madison, you might want to go for Madison, but it's close because Holland is Holland. I'd probably captain, for example, Salah over Holland, if you want to put it that way too. Edward says Pedro to Morris. You could do that, but I actually like just waiting for that move on Game Week 7. Mohanad says Lucas Dean or Ruben Diaz Dean. Eich says start 3 of these 5. Henry, Chilwell, and Boomer, Sterling Jackson. I'd play Sterling Jackson in a heartbeat. I'd play Chilwell as well. There you go. Aguero, I think I can keep Johnson until he's his spot, and Botman trips aren't on my radar yet because of their UCL fixtures. So Saliba could go to Cash or Anderson. Look, I'd probably go Cash because if Guehi's out, that probably weakens the Crystal Palace defense. Matthew Kingston says start Gabriel or Estu. I'd probably start Gabriel. Coder says Fulham defender or Saliba. I'd probably play Saliba. Maran says, is it worth it to sell Watkins for Archer to upgrade Matoma to Son? Honestly, I would actually consider doing that move. Honestly, I would generally consider that move because it's a very strong move. Let's say upgrading Matoma to Son. For example, I think it's a bit of a worse move to move from, let's say, Rashford or Saka, who have good fixtures on paper this week, right? From an attacking point of view, I still think United are a good defense at home. So, yeah, I mean, take of that what you will. Bruno or Rashford for Son. I'd probably go Rashford out first. JY, I know you've got 2 free transfers, so I'd probably... I mean, if you want to do those 2 free transfers, go for it. I think there's enough upside there. Hold with Charleston, probably no. Bruno or Rashford for Son. Answered that already. I think I would go Rashford out. Alvarez over Mbumo. I'd definitely start Alvarez over Mbumo. I mean, people have asked good questions. For example, someone asked me earlier, should I go Saliba or Mbumo to sort of play? And clearly, it's because Mbumo is the odd one out in my team. He's the one where I'd probably bench him. But right now, I'm not going to do that. Take care, Aguero. Hope you have a good game week. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly respond to question from someone. Oh no, sorry. One of my USBs just... Okay, there we go. USB jack fixed. Right, so bench Mbumo or Matoma. Honestly, I'd probably bench Matoma. I don't really like benching penalty takers when I have the opportunity to have them. Eamon says, I need a Richarlison replacement. You got 0.9 in the bank. Look, it's very tough. I mean, it's very hard to replace Richarlison this week. I mean, you could go Eze, but Eze doesn't have the best game. So, like, you might want to keep him. You might want to keep... If you don't have enough money in the bank to sort of upgrade him, you might want to keep him. I mean, you've got Foden as well sitting there, who could be within reach. But then Foden's got bad fixtures so soon in the short term. I find it so hard. Unless you can go to Madison, it's very tough. Yassine says, I'm hesitating with using wildcard now or after Game Week 8. Your rank is 2.1 million. I mean, Yassine, tell me what your team is and we can make a decision today, I would say. Like that's probably the only thing I can say to you. Remote control, would you still play Mbumo if you had a Newcastle defender? Yeah, yes, I probably would actually. I mean, yes, it's a form of hedging, right? Like for example, one of them is going to lose out probably, or I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you could argue Mbumo could blank, and look, the simple reality is there's a good probability that Newcastle keep a clean sheet. There's also an okay probability that Mbumo will do well in terms of points. So when you think about it, and let's say Estupinian versus Mbumo was the question, right? And you're playing a Newcastle defender. I mean, Estupinian's probably going to do bad anyways, and Mbumo still has a chance of doing well. So I would still take 2 chances of doing well as opposed to just 1. Gusto over Saliba. Yeah, I mean, I just prefer the attacking fullback over there. If your question is for me, Cutters in 6 million. Look, I've seen some crazy climbs, honestly. And anything is possible. I think if you just make good moves over the course of 38 game weeks, you'll probably be rewarded. Patient moves, not too aggressive moves, not overreacting too much, looking a little bit more to the medium to the long term. These are the kind of advices that I can have, and you can get lucky. I got super lucky, guys. I mean, I mean, look at this. Look at this. So I literally went from game week 1 being at 1.2 million, staying at 1.3 million. Then suddenly, within a week, I was in the 24K. So things can change extremely fast in FPL, and all it really takes is for you to get lucky. But to get lucky as well, you need to put yourself in a position to get lucky too. So making sure that your transfers are still good and things like that. I've gotten absurdly lucky. So that's what I would say. Do you think captaining Salah is a good move? I do think so, yes. If you guys are also new as well to the chat, thank you guys so much. Welcome around. If you guys could also subscribe, have a feel free to check out some of my other YouTube videos. That would be lovely. Start Colwell or Stupinian? Colwell probably. What were your transfers this week? Just short out to Udogi. I did it very early, so you can call me an early transfer terrorist, as I like to say. I captured 1 Udogi price rise, avoided 1 short price fall. That was sort of what I did this week. Remote control, agree with your logic. Yep. Your weakest player is Pickford, and you've got 2 free transfers. Who would be a good replacement? Areola or Flecken? The thing is, though, I mean, look at who actually has the fixtures this week. Areola and Flecken have terrible fixtures. But if you're planning for the future and you're punting on a turn or start, fine. Then I would say just go Flecken. Actually, I would go Areola, honestly. But the concern I would say in that situation is if you go Areola and Turner, actually, game week 6 is still bad for you on paper, right? Because you're against Liverpool. So the reason why I argue for Flecken is because Flecken Turner is probably something that gives you at least a good game week 6 fixture, because we're not sure in this landscape that Turner can actually play game week 6. So it's a tough situation. I think Flecken is better than Areola, if we want to put it like that. But Areola might actually be the better long-term option, even though Flecken covers game week 6 so well. It's a tough one, because I think with Pickford, game week 6, 7, 8 is quite good for him. Not 6, sorry, but 7 and 8 at least. So there is some validity to kind of holding on to Pickford for those fixtures. Yassine, I don't know what's going on, but it says message retracted every time you send a message. If you want to drop a comment to me on YouTube, I can try and respond to that in another way possible, and I'll try be cognizant of that. Alternatively, you can try contact me on Twitter, on a DM, and let me know when you've done that, or Discord, where you've got access to the private chat as well as in your membership tier. So you can kind of DM me through that, just based on membership. CM Punk says he'll be currently making an unnecessary transfer later on if he does roll this week. Would you consider Pickford to Pope then? I mean, you could do that. I just don't love Pope as a keeper. I think he's a little bit too pricey. Do we know what's up with Botman? I mean, he trained, is what Eddie Howe said, but Eddie Howe's also a bit of a fraud, right? Eddie Howe has. I'm not saying he's okay. He's not a fraud, but like he has lied to us in a sense in some press conferences, and he has been very very vague about injuries, and I don't really trust him at times based on that. So that's my concern. Overy says my weakest player. Yeah, I've answered that question. Sorry about that. 2 Chelsea defenders. No, it's not a good Chelsea fixture, but I don't believe in the concept of coverage. And I still think it's not the greatest Arsenal fixture. So in this situation, I'm just going for the fullbacks. Foden to Son. You already have Madison. I don't think it's necessary, but you can absolutely do that. I like Bowen to Son more. Mitoma to Diaby. It could be a differential for sure. I mean, I do like the move independently, but you're kind of passing up on Mitoma game week 6 as well. So I think Watkins is already a huge differential. A lot of people have sold Watkins, so you're actually in a good position as a differential owner. Steve, nice to see you around. Hope you're doing well. Thoughts on Porro? I think Porro's a fantastic choice. So the reason why I went for Udogie actually was because initially I thought Reece James was coming back. So my initial plan was actually to go Trippier. As you can see, I wouldn't have the money to do that if I went for Porro. But now looking back, maybe Porro could have been the crazy punt that I could have owned this week. So I would absolutely go for Porro if you had the chance. But the concern, of course, is you are taking on a fantastic differential, and he might actually be the top scorer in this Spurs team this week. Because when we look at the underlying stats, and hopefully FPL can be a bit helpful with us here, just showing it. Udogie actually hasn't had amazing underlying stats, right? Some good XGI in the Bournemouth game, good XGI in the United game. But then actually, let's look at Porro very quickly. The issue with Porro, of course, is minutes. But we've seen 3 great starts so far. Look at the XGI, though. Incredible. So, yeah, I do think Porro's a great punt. Okay, great. I can see your team now. Ramsdale, Trippier, Chilwell, Gusto, Udogie, Mitoma, Rashford, Saka, Almiron, Isaac, Areola, and Mbeumo Estupiñán. You know what's funny about your team, Yassine? Your team's actually really good after this week, right? Game week 5 is going to be bad for you. That's just my genuine opinion. But look at your team for game week 6. Isaac looks great. Almiron looks great. Mitoma looks great. Rashford, Saka both look great. And then Trippier, Chilwell, Gusto, still decent games. Probably bench Gusto. You probably have a better defender like Estupiñán. That's your sort of backline for game week 6. So actually, your team looks bad on paper for me for game week 5. I probably wouldn't wildcard, but what I would say is I still think Almiron's a little bit of a tough pick. And same with Mitoma. Like I think you probably would want one of them to be Mbeumo, actually, still. And maybe if you want a wild card to do things like getting out of Vinicius, for example, that could make sense. Getting out of Ramsdale, potentially, who could lose his position in the team. The issue, as I said, is I think your team's really good for this week. And you've actually got Udogie as well. So honestly, I think your team's really strong. You don't need a wild card at all. So I would definitely play Trippier, Chilwell, Udogie. Probably play that midfield 5. And then go with Haaland and Isaac. Yeah, I probably wouldn't bench Mbeumo this week. It is a bit of a weird structure, your team, though. Because I think I would definitely play Mbeumo over Gusto. That's the only thing I would say. That's the only thing I would say. I think your team's good. You can wildcard later as well. But I think, for example, as I said, Game Week 6 is really strong for you. So it does actually make sense to hold on to that wildcard until at least Game Week 6, like 7, 8, 10 at the bare minimum. Geo tip, start Diaz or Anderson. Which Anderson are we talking about? Elliot Anderson? Or am I missing something out? Are we talking about Anderson from Crystal Palace? I would start Diaz, probably. It's not great, though. I'd probably go out of one of these players. Sun captaincy, I'd absolutely do it. Let's do a captaincy poll, actually. That'd be quite interesting. So I'll put Sun there. Some people have actually mentioned Salah, so I'm actually going to add that in. And we've got Madison as well. I know some people might go for other, but I apologize if you're going for another pick, like a Henry, for example. I still think, for example, Rashford, Sterling, Bruno, these players have good fixtures, even Saka. So should I play João Pedro or Morris? I'd probably actually play João Pedro, honestly, still. Keymaker, thank you. Nice to see you back as well. Alvarez is a safe bet. I think so. You've got Grealish injured, but he's not that safe of a bet, right? Because the fixtures get bad soon. So game week 8, we try to think about transfers medium term, long term as well. So when you think about Alvarez, game week 8, 9, 10, those are all bad fixtures. So you probably don't actually want to be going to Alvarez this week. But if you own Alvarez, he's a very safe play. He's a very safe start. I'm sorry I spelled captaincy wrong, by the way, first of all. That's pretty embarrassing. That's embarrassing. Gosh. So Son's actually up there, and actually not many people own Son. A lot of people are actually going Salah Madison. Are you telling me that Haaland's going to be a bit of a differential this week? Please try to answer seriously, guys. I generally don't believe I'm walking to this game week with a 150%, for example, Haaland captaincy. All right, Dobber. You've got me there. No Rashford option is crazy. Salah. Where are my Jackson captains? Mate, Lilas, you're a differential for sure. How do price drops and rises work? So when you go on a website like, for example, like Fantasy Football Hub actually has price rises and falls. So on price changes, for example, you can see price changes here. So every day, effectively, there is a set deadline wherever you are in the world, and you'll see it on being announced as well. That, for example, I think it's UK time 2:30 a.m. So every 2:30 a.m. you'll see price rises and falls. So, and that's done as a result of transfers being done every week. So let's say 100,000 people transferred in Sun. Maybe that's just enough volume to push Sun. And a lot of these websites like, Fantasy Football Hub here or FPL Statistics, another good site as well, they kind of confirm that players like Madison, Son, Romero, and Bumo are going for price rises, right? So in this situation, what's going on is we know these players will get a price rise. And at the end of tomorrow, Madison will be 7.9, Son will be 9.2, Romero will be 4.8 likely. I mean, some of these might not happen. This is only a guess because we don't have, perfect understanding. Rico Lewis might fall here, Mudryk might fall, Bernardo might fall. But basically, if you own a player, every 2 price rises, you actually get 0.1 of the value back as an available for trade. So if I get Gusto at 4.0, which I did, and now he's at 4.2 million, I can only sell him for half of the price rises that I've gotten. And he needs to at least have gotten 2 price rises, right? So every 2 price rises, I get 0.1 million back. So in this situation, I own Gusto as a 4.1 player because of that. And the same sort of logic with Chilwell, who's now at 5.8. And the same logic with Estupiñán. I mean, Chilwell's a good example of that. He's gone to 3 price rises, but he's still actually only worth 5.6. If he goes to 5.9, which is very unlikely, then Chilwell, of course, would become a 5.7 pick for me. And with Estupiñán, as you can see here, he's gotten 3 price rises too, but he's only gotten that 1 value back. With Saliba, similar situation where because he's only gotten 1 value back. So that's the price rise situation. I would just look at these sort of price sites to actually get a good idea of who's moving up, who's moving down. Remember too, though, that a lot of the prices in these websites are also determined by wildcard statistics. So if you see a lot of people wildcarding, that also changes, for example, the transfer algorithm, and it might be incorrect. But anyways, thank you guys so much for being here. A lot of you guys in the stream today, so really nice to actually capture you guys after missing Game Week 4. Thank you guys so much for being around, and if you guys can like and subscribe, that would be lovely. Saka to Son and Pedro to Foster or Archer. Yeah, I would probably go Pedro. Honestly, Foster's like if you're planning to bench Foster, decent little idea there. Saka to Son. Dan Nunn. Enough wildcard upside next week? I don't think so, personally. I don't like wildcarding next week at all. But another thing I'll say about price rises and falls is FPL isn't a game where it's the stock market. You're not trying to chase people who get price rises aren't necessarily going to haul. People who get price falls aren't necessarily going to fail to haul. So the polls ended. Haaland's above 54%, something that I expected. But yeah. Is Guardiola starting today? Honestly, I don't know, and I don't think so. I think Ake might start because West Ham, you might want to play actually a taller center back, almost. Archit says best forward to go for a short term. I think short term Alvarez, long term actually Hoyland is sort of interesting. Actually, is what we determined. Coder says sub Son and captain Holland. So okay, you mean you transferred in Son? Please don't tell me you bench Son, because I hope that's not what I'm reading. Start Ruben or Saliba. Who do I support? This team over here, if you can see. Tomas says, I have one free transfer. Would you replace Gabriel for someone? I'd probably think about a Spurs defender or a Newcastle one. If you can't do that, then I probably wouldn't do it. Start Cash or Trippier. I'd start Trippier still. Do I change Guardiola? You could. You could. I'd probably, as I said, go for Udogi or a Newcastle defender. In terms of the Premier League, by the way, I don't actually support a specific team. I mean, I watch all the games as much as possible, but I'm pretty unbiased, which is quite nice for FPL, being unbiased. Fulham defender or Saliba? Probably Saliba. Have Errol and Pickford, bring on Leno for Pickford. Well, I would definitely go for Leno in that situation. Yeah, if you have the opportunity, like if you generally have Errol Leno, I think that's a very good keeper pair. All the best, Dobber. Good luck to you this week. Start Shar, Estupiñán, or Cash. Probably Cash. I'd probably start Trippier over Cash, but I'd probably start Cash over Shar. Bench Eze and Mbumo for Awani. I'd probably bench Mbumo, my friend. Good luck, Federico. Start Saliba or Estupiñán. I'd start Saliba. I packed Ginola. Did you do that in FUT? Or Foot? Start Fran. So you said who to start between Ruben and Saliba? I'd probably start Ruben, honestly. It's close, though. I'd probably start Ruben. Who do I transfer for João Pedro? I think you can keep him for Game Week 6. But you can also just go for Morris. Who in your midfield would you switch for Son if you had the chance to? Probably Sterling. But actually, if you look at it like this, right? For example, if I went for Sterling to Son, I would take... I don't have the chance to go Trippier now, right? Which is tough. So... honestly, I'd probably go out of Rashford. Mate, that's absolutely mad. I don't think I've packed a good player on Ultimate Team for like 3 years. Am I good without the Man United duo? Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the Man United duo is essential whatsoever. Diaz or Gusto? I'd play Diaz for sure. The clean sheet odds are, I believe they're higher for City than, let's say, higher for Arsenal. So, you know, when we look at it like that, good opportunity. So, yeah, I think City have just about, I mean, they have very similar clean sheet odds. Like, I think City, Arsenal, Newcastle, quite similar, but Diaz is actually quite a good goal threat as well. Compared to, I think Saliba's not the best goal threat in the world. And then you've got access to bonus sometimes as well. So it's a tricky decision. I think it's close. For example, Diaz and Gusto, but it depends. Like maybe if you're in the same camp as me, where you think, okay, Gusto can actually be interesting with some attacking upside, then go for Gusto like me. But Diaz, it feels like a nice differential too. As I said, they're sort of 50-50s. I mean, some people have questioned why I've gone for Saliba or why I've gone for Gusto, and it's close. Madison captain, good. Chiseled Planet, nice to see you around. I remember you. I do want to say something. I remember you came into the stream and you donated. Thank you so much, by the way. Game Week 2, I believe you did Diaz captaincy and you also had Jota on your team at the time. Do you remember what I said in that week? I do like the Madison captaincy shout. I'm personally of the mind that I think Haaland can do as good. So I would suggest most people do Haaland. Clearly, you're a very risk-seeking person. So good luck to you on that captaincy. I think it's actually a strong one. Tyron Smith says, best Henry replacement that's not Chilwell or Udogi. I plan to wildcard Game Week 10, 9 to 10. Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't be replacing Henry into Chilwell now. I think Chilwell is a little bit of a waste of money if we think about just trying to get some immediate upside. So I do like the idea of going for Porro, actually, maybe. Because Pedro Porro could be helpful for you this week. It does depend on, do you have defenders coming in next week? So, for example, if you have Porro, he has a bad game week 6, a bad game week 7. Do you have someone like a Stupinian to come in, fix your team and the issues that you have for game week 6? If not, maybe just go for a Newcastle defender, Tyrone. I'd probably do that. Darude Andy, I think your message got deleted, so I'm not sure about that. Botman or Shar, I'd probably go Shar because it seems like Botman, he trained, but we're not sure if he'll play. Chisel the Plan, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Zach says, was Pickford to Leno a good move with 2 free transfers? I actually think so. If you've got Areola, that Leno-Areola duo is really, really strong. Jay War says, thanks for all the help. Would you start Gabriel Estupiñán? I'd probably still go Gabriel, honestly, if you just want to play one. Gabriel Jesus is a good pick too, but then you've also got to think, very much like Alvarez, you're then staring very quickly at Game Week 8 versus City, and then you're thinking, oh, then there's Chelsea as well. So when we look at the short-term landscape for Arsenal, it's not even that great, right? Because it's Spurs, and then actually 2 away fixtures. So I don't love Jesus that much as a pick, as a short-term punt. How crucial is Trippier? I find him crucial, but you don't need to go for it. Honestly, BL, I actually think Højlund is an interesting replacement. He doesn't have the best fixture versus Brighton this week, but he could be an interesting Jackson replacement. Because Alvarez, for me, is a bit too short-term. He kind of has the same sort of expiry date as Jackson, Alvarez does. But I really would keep Jackson. I've been asking you to do it. I hope Jackson pops off. He doesn't even exist in my team, and a lot of people still own him, and I still would like you to benefit from a Jackson haul. I wouldn't make this decision just because Jackson's falling in price as well. You've got Turner back up. The rotation between him and Leno is decent. I mean, yeah, but the issue with Turner, for example, is he could lose his spot in the team, and therefore you no longer have rotation. Canan, thank you so much. Appreciate you for being around as well. Love the badge there, BL. Mitoma over Fernandes. I mean, to start, I would definitely start Fernandes over Mitoma. Is Maddison a captaincy shout? I mean, he's a good captain in terms of the fact that I think he can do as well as, let's say, someone like Haaland. But is he the best captain? Probably not. I'd probably say Son and Salah are better. And I'd probably put Maddison on the equal footing as Haaland. So then actually Maddison becomes a question of, do you want to sort of punt against the house? And fair enough if you do. Hey, Fran, would you start Gusto over Stupinian? I mean, what do you think I've done in my team? Start to Mito, Colwell, Mbumo. I'd probably do Mbumo, Colwell. I mean, you can actually do Mitoma and Mbumo, to be honest. Because I think with Colwell, you've got less attacking upside than someone like Gusto. So maybe it doesn't make too much sense. Any marriage tips? I don't know. Just be it depends obviously what your preference is, but just be an open, honest person, and try to be the best version of yourself every day. That's all I can really say. Mbumo, Jackson, Foden, pick 2 to start. Foden, Jackson for sure. I'd bench Mbumo in your situation. Going for Højlund. Go Bruno or Diaby in midfield. I like Bruno, honestly. Because if you can start from Bruno, you can always downgrade down. Jaden says, I've gone for Alisson because I've spare money. That's an interesting one, honestly. I actually was asked the question of Alisson versus Pope earlier on, and I did answer the same way. I said, go for Alisson. Because Pope, you've got access to these Newcastle defenders at much cheaper prices. Chiseled, you've got Alvarez also, gotten Trippier and Isaac. Wait, have you gone for some pretty big hits, or are you on a wild card of some sort? I think Son's the best choice for captaincy. As I said though, I'm not gonna go into Son for a -4. Just not gonna do it. Just not gonna do it. And my plan is still to go for Trippier, so that will stay in place. You're the one to say Colwell. I'm scared of Fatty eating Mitoma Mins. I mean, the thing is, how early is Fatty going to eat Mitoma Mins? And I think Mitoma is just their best player still. If you're going for a Chelsea defender, I think you're trying to look at the attacking upside. And if there's not too much attacking upside, maybe just go for Mitoma. Any news on Sven Botman? He trains, but we're not sure if he'll play. So there's a concern. Porro good for long term. Look, I mean, Emerson started game week 1, but I don't know why he's missed out 3 game weeks in a row. We might see that Emerson can come in, but I do think Pedro's a good short-term punt. Long-term, of course, if he continues to start, I mean, Porro is actually probably better than Udogie. So when you think about the Tottenham fixtures, right? After game week 6 and 7, very good run after game week 8. Chisel Planet, thank you so much, and welcome to Captain as well. Appreciate you being around. Love you being here. And, you know, would like to see you more on live streams in the future. Really awesome to actually capture you, I guess, on back-to-back live streams too. So kind of sad that I missed out last week, but welcome around and really appreciate it. Salah captain today. Pray for me. That's a great punt. Good luck. Can we get a captaincy poll? We actually did a captaincy poll. It was Haaland 54%. It was Madison 14%, Salah 16%, and I think Son something like 28 or something. So when you think about it that way, that's how the effective ownership will probably crumble. Maybe Son a little bit less because not too many people own Saland in the first place. Or sorry, not Saland, Son. So I think the captaincy in terms of effective ownership will probably go something like Haaland, then Son, then Salah. Or actually, my bad. Haaland, Son, Madison, then Salah. So Salah's going to be the biggest differential. But in terms of expected points, I'd probably say, you know, I still really like Son, then Salah, then Haaland, then Madison in that order. But Madison's close to Haaland. I'd probably put them around the same. Thoughts on just rolling the transfer, going for Spurs players feels like bait. I've been saying about this. So I went for Udogie this week. So on the topic of bait, for example, with Udogie, the reason why I've gone for him is because I plan on going for Trippier no matter what in game week 6. So even though he's got 2 bad fixtures, it's not really bait because you've got the best clean sheet odds this week in game week 6, and then you're actually moving into, let's say, another defender game week 6. So I'm covered, right? Game week 6, I go Chilwell, I go Estupiñán, and I go Trippier. Game week 7, you've got a good fixture again. You've got a great fixture actually. So I can still own Chilwell and Gusto very happily. And it's not really bait to own Udogie because after that, you're owning them still for the long term. And then in terms of, let's say, when I was advocating for people to wildcard, if they wanted to wildcard, I was telling people to go Son and Madison. Why is that? Because if you can captain Son and go for Madison this week, there's a lot of good short-term upside. And yes, of course, the fixtures are worse than, let's say, United's next 2 fixtures in terms of Burnley and Crystal Palace. But ultimately, that short-term upside of Sheffield United, for example, Sheffield United at home is still a better fixture than any of these fixtures here, up until, you know, Luton Town at home for United at game week 12. And you're not going to capture that in that run. So in this short-term run where, once again, the opportunity to move into a Spurs player in game week 8 is there, if you captain Son as well, effectively you've got 4 Spurs players or even 3, right? However you want to put it like that. So I do really like the idea of captaining Son this week if you have the chance and it's a luxury for you. But I've never been asking people to take hits for Son. It doesn't make too much sense unless you're a Bowen owner or something like that, where you've got 2 bad fixtures as well, and you're not even on penalties as a Bowen owner. So that's sort of my thoughts on that. And then once again with Rashford, because these fixtures aren't that much better than Son in game week 5, it's not always going to be 1 versus 2. It could be, you could even argue the Sheffield United game is so good, it's almost like a 1.5 versus, let's say, maybe Burnley away being 1.2 and then Crystal Palace at home. Crystal Palace a very good defense ultimately, so still a relatively average but better fixture than, of course, Liverpool. So you kind of have to visualize it like that. Like, it's not just 1 fixture versus 2. It's sometimes 1.2 versus 1.3, 1.7. And the math, in my opinion, does add up for going for Son. I don't think it's bait. But as I said, it's a luxury position because still United have good fixtures. Still Arsenal have good fixtures until game week 8. And all right, that's enough about the Spurs bait topic. Madison all the way. You're ready to be punished. I was punished many times last season by Haaland and still finished at a decent rank, right? Finished at around 8K. Yeah, I went for the Salah captaincy when he was first Nottingham Forest, if you guys remember when they lost to Nottingham Forest. And I remember Haaland scoring a brace versus Brighton, and that was pretty disgusting. Even last season, I actually didn't own Haaland at all for game week 15 and 16. I sold him. So I think you can take differentials, but always trying to think about it in terms of points. Don't try to go for a differential just because the ownership is low. Go for a differential because you think the differential is actually going to score good points. For example, when I went for Sterling and Gusto in game week 2 and I had a huge points explosion in this game week, I didn't think that I wasn't going for Gusto because he was low owned. I wasn't going for Sterling because he was low owned. I just thought the fixture made sense and I thought the transfer made sense from a points point of view. And fortunately, I was rewarded. I was very, very lucky as well. But, you know, that's how things work in FPL. What do you think of captaining Salah? I think he's a very good punt. Have I rolled this week? No, not at all, Ben. I've actually gone for Udogie as my free transfer. So Udogie's my free transfer. Next week, I'm probably still going to go for another defender in Trippier. Just because with Gusto back, I can actually afford to sort of take Saliba out of my team. Because what is Saliba's good fixture? It's game week 7 versus Bournemouth. I mean, you could even argue it's Everton. But actually, Everton have been a pretty good attack so far. So, yeah, you've gone for Jesus mostly because you're an Arsenal fan. I mean, I'll never say Jesus is a bad pick. If you see my cheat sheet, he's a tier 2 pick. The same tier as Højlund. I'd probably be advocating for Højlund because when you think, you know, medium term, Højlund has better fixtures than Jesus and Jesus has good fixtures in the short term, right? So Jesus has good fixtures on paper where it's Everton away, Spurs at home, Burnley away. But then you've got 8 and 9, which are pretty tough. My thoughts are that, if you just go into, let's say, Fernandes and just look at the fixtures there. Okay, Brighton home, semi-tough, but then Burnley away, Crystal Palace at home, Brentford at home, Sheffield United away. If you're owning Højlund, it could be an interesting run to actually go for Højlund instead. Is Jesus a bad pick? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And then the issue, for example, if you're looking at players like Darwin in the same price tier, is he can always get benched. So he's very tough to own. If you own Watkins, if you own Jackson, if you own Pedro, I'd probably roll and hold on these players. They're all good picks. Pedro not for game week 5 necessarily, but Pedro's a very good own for game week 6. So if you own Pedro, then you can go into Morris in game week 7, which I think is someone else's question as well. Udogie to Shar. Why are you going Udogie to Shar, sorry? Or Johnstone to Pope to take a -4? Oh, next game week, sorry. I mean, let's think about next game week, but I do like the idea of going out of Johnstone, basically, if it seems like he's starting to get benched. The ultimate player, Salon. Nice one, Slow Worms. Is Son really worth it? I think he's worth it, as I said, in a luxury position, in an absolute luxury position. Yeah. And yeah, going Son for a hit is, as I said, unless you have Bowen, for example, who's also got bad fixtures, then it's tough. And yeah, I am rocking the Real Madrid jersey. Actually, my family from Spain were very, very kind, and they bought me the jersey. So I usually tend to buy the jerseys when they're a little bit cheaper at the end of the season, right? And you're also going for the winter version, fair enough. But yeah, I got very lucky. They bought me the kit. I would love to probably get Jude Bellingham printed on this kit because, I mean, my God, this guy is an unreal player. I was also watching the Jude Bellingham sort of FIFA video with the England national team. Hilarious guy as well. And he's just so well poised in terms of press conferences. This week, Captain Messi, Pulisic, or Giroud. Is this UCL fantasy, my friend? No, I mean, Messi's in the MLS. I don't even know, bro. Go Giroud if you want. Is this Serie A fantasy? Udogie to Shar. I mean, I wouldn't go out of Udogie next week, so I would do the Johnstone move. But why are you doing this -4 for next game week? I'm kind of concerned. Play Estupiñán or sell. I mean, I would actually hold Estupiñán and then play him next week. Madison or Haaland captain. I would go Haaland. But you can go Madison if you want. Yo, Henry, you might watch the match at the Bernabeu. I mean, that's awesome, honestly. I would actually love to catch a game too. I mean, let me know what sort of game you're able to catch. I think Steve, who's one of the members on the platform, actually went for one of the games. Go Areola, great long pick. Absolutely, I think Watchers of the Planet says is good, very good goalkeeper. But if you're looking for a goalkeeper this week, I mean, there aren't too many that actually have good fixtures, right? That are cheap. For example, you could. I think I have looked at some crazy pairs. For example, Sanchez Kaminsky on a wild card is interesting because you get the Luton double game week fixture, and then actually the rotation's not too bad. Why Gusto over Saliba? I just want to go with the attacking fullback in this situation. I think the clean sheet odds are favoring Arsenal, so Arsenal should have a better chance of getting a clean sheet, but it's still quite low. And in those sorts of situations, I think because Chelsea still have a decent chance of a clean sheet. Like, for example, if you compare Estupiñán, he's got almost no chance of a clean sheet if you look at bookie odds. He's almost half. think he has 15% clean sheet odds versus, let's say, something like a Chelsea team at 30%, 32%. I've seen Arsenal something like 38%, 40%, even as low as 35%. So when you can see it, where the clean sheet odds are semi-close between Chelsea and Arsenal, and Gusto's the attacking fullback, I'd probably go with Gusto there. Don't have bench contender this week, so that's why you're going to sell. I mean, yeah, probably sell us to be in that case. I mean, you could also consider starting, because it depends on who can you actually bring in this week. If you can bring in Trippier, then that's great. But if you can't bring in Trippier, then it's not really worth it. Like moving out of Estupinian. Start Botman or Estupinian, probably Botman. You know, because I the way I see it is I don't think Botman's going to come in late in the game, right? So he'll either start or he won't. Can I get Alvarez in place of Jackson? I think Alvarez is a bit short term, if I'm being honest. I would honestly hold Jackson, guys. A lot of you guys are asking, should I sell Jackson? I generally would not sell Jackson. I'm telling you right now, I'm not saying this because I own Alvarez. I owned João Pedro in the past, and that's why I own Alvarez. But if I own Jackson this week, I would hold him. It's Bournemouth away. Bournemouth are not a good defense. They're just not. If anything, West Ham are a slightly better defense. Not that it matters much, but Turner may not play this game. I mean, yeah, Owen, you're right. In fact, I'm not expecting Turner to play, but I mean, I'm going to punt on it, right? Last time I'm asking about Son, Rashford to Son or Shaw to Udogie. I would definitely go Shaw to Udogie, honestly, because Shaw's a problem, right? Shaw's a problem in your team. Rashford is not a problem. Nuclear, I would stay patient with Sterling. I would keep Sterling as well. I think Sterling has shown good signs so far. It's not like his underlying stats are, non-existent. If you look at the underlying stats, actually, I mean, good underlying stats in the Nottingham Forest game. Amazing underlying stats in the Luton game. Even good stats in the West Ham game. He's only really disappointed so far in the Liverpool game. And he's looked better and better from the West Ham game onwards. So, yeah, I kind of like the idea of just keeping Sterling. Score predictions. You know what? I'll come back a better manager next week. And I'll come with maybe some sort of fixture chart where I can put sort of my random predictions in if that's what you guys want. But score predict, fine. Let's just do it. Wolves, Liverpool. I don't know. Maybe 3-1 Liverpool. Villa, Crystal Palace. Maybe 1-1. Fulham, Luton. I'd say 2-0. Man United, Brighton. 3-2. Spurs, Sheffield. 4-0. West Ham, City. Maybe 1-2. Newcastle, Brentford. Probably 1-1. Bournemouth, Chelsea. I'd say 1-2, but actually, because I own 2 Chelsea players, let's just say 0-2. Everton, Arsenal. Probably 1-2 as well. Or 1-3, actually. Nottingham Forest, Burnley. Probably 2-1. But score predictions are completely random. Just came off the top of my head. Do they mean anything? Not really. So I would trust, goal scoring odds, assist odds, clean sheet odds. Those are a little bit more objective from the bookies and things like that. They give us a little bit better insight. They allow us to be objective. And, FPL is also a game where you pick players for multiple weeks, not just one. So that was a bit of fun, but don't take the score prediction seriously at all. Captain Son, absolutely Captain Son if you have him. Diaby Gameweek 8. I think that's a very good pencil transfer. Do you not like the idea of Watkins? I guess it depends. So some people are actually planning, that I've spoken to, are planning, for example, Haaland to Salah, then Watkins in. But I guess if you plan on keeping Haaland, then maybe you could see it as Diaby being good coverage for Watkins. But then the question, I suppose, is how are you trying to get more Liverpool into your team when they have good fixtures? And that might be one question to ask. Basania says, would you hold Watkins? I'd probably hold Watkins 100%. I mean, Watkins, in my opinion, is a better fixture than Alvarez. It's a home fixture, right? Had to double check there. Dalol says, should I play João Pedro, Morris, or Estupinian? I'd probably play João Pedro. Juliano says, triple up on Spurs. Yeah, go for it. go for it, honestly. If you've got no issues in your team and that one free transfer isn't going to hurt your long-term transfers, then go for it. And actually, you'd probably have 4 Spurs, right? Because you'd be sun captaining. Nuclear Adams, think of having Morris instead of Alvarez on the wild card so that I can get Rashford in for Madison. I mean, I don't think Rashford is that much of an upgrade over Madison, right? Because you would also got to think about, it depends on what that spot in your forward line does. Are you planning to play Morris every week? Or were you planning to sort of rotate around Alvarez? If the answer is I want to play Alvarez every week, then I prefer the Alvarez move, right? Because Alvarez is someone that I'd much rather have as a starter, and maybe we can move him in the future. Then let's say owning someone like a Morris, who you probably, I mean, you could play him actually all 3 fixtures in a row. And then, of course, Morris and Alvarez both become problems in Game Week 8. So it depends on what your plans are for Game Week 8 as well. Try to think about that. I do think Madison's a great pick, though. If I was wildcarding, I probably wouldn't have Rashford, if that helps you. I'd probably go Haaland, Alvarez, Morris. Madison captain. I think it's close to Haaland. Good luck to you if you're doing that. Also, if you guys could like and subscribe, that would be lovely. 144 of you guys on the viewer chat right now. Would love to actually get to 200 eventually as well one day. But thank you guys once again so much for being around. By the way, also, for anyone who actually joined as a member or is a member and on the live stream, you can always contact me on Twitter or YouTube comments in the membership community panel, or also just simply on Discord. And, you know, you will have access to the sort of membership Discord if you want to sort of ask me personal questions over the course of the week. So always feel free to do that whenever you want. Sorry, guys, I've just got to respond to a text, unfortunately. So quickly having a look at I'm just having a look at Twitter just to see if we actually get some leaks. Have we gotten any leaks today? Is anyone aware of us having any leaks? Doesn't seem like it, actually. No, doesn't seem like we've actually gotten any leaks so far. Awesome, Chisel Planet. Haaland or Son as a captain? I'd definitely go with Son if I had the chance. I wouldn't be taking a -4 for Son, that's for sure. Best goalie under 5.3 million. You know, I'd probably still save a bit of money. I mean, if you want to just say just in isolation, I'd probably say Allison actually. Sorry, no, Allison's not 5.3 million. What am I talking about? Of course he's not, right? Oh, why is he a Becker in the game? I didn't even know that was the case. Sorry, not Allison. Just independently, I think Flecken is the best. But actually, if you wanted to look at a pair, I really like Areola and Leno. Sanchez is a good keeper as well. I was also saying that Sanchez and Kaminsky is quite interesting because you could get a double game week keeper and then rotate with Sanchez. So if we look at Chelsea's games, okay, they get quite worse quite quickly. But yeah, I mean, you could get some upside with someone like Kaminsky too. Trafford as well is not bad. I think he rotates okay with Leno. Because if you get Leno in the short term, then you got Trafford double game week. It's not too bad as well. But really, I would just go with Flecken or Sanchez. At 5.0, I don't love the keepers because the only reason why I don't like Vicario is Vicario kind of blocks you from triple Spurs. Let's say game week 8, you want to have triple Spurs, right? You could have Son, Madison, Udogie or Son, Madison, Porro, and you would be blocked from that. Any breaking news? None so far. Fran, how will Spurs buying Johnson affect Son and Richarlison? Look, I've heard from friends that I would trust quite a bit that they think that Johnson could play as a 9 at times. But obviously, we know that historically he's also played right wing. He's a very different profile to Kulusevski. So that will also have to be an interesting one. How does he get integrated? I think the only thing I can say is the best information that we'll get is how he plays in the team, what he's coming in to replace, maybe even as soon as this week. We know that Son can still go out wide, and that probably doesn't make Son a bad pick, because if he gets most games as a central forward and is on penalties, he's still an amazing option. As far as him affecting Maddison, though, I don't think he'll really affect Maddison. As far as Richarlison, I mean, that's going to be an added depth piece, right? Where Richarlison, you could argue it could be a left winger at times, quite a busy sort of physical left winger, which he sort of played at Everton. I mean, Everton was more sort of like a left forward role, but in reality, he could do that. But also, you know, we expect Richarlison to be the striker at times, and if Brennan can take that spot away, then that could really hamper Richarlison as a pick, and sort of maybe, you know, make him sit on the team for a prolonged period of time until he finds, you know, a good bout of form. So it's tough. I think it makes the Richarlison position worse. I think it doesn't really make Son immediately worse, if at all. Bowen to Son or Sterling with... I would go out of Bowen. Honestly, Sterling has a good game. Bowen does not. It's just as simple as that. Hello, Fran. Any breaking news from Kataro? Nope. No breaking news. Is it risky to captain Salah? The early kickoff is a myth. You're correct. It's not risky to captain him, in my opinion. Udogie for Bulldog or Rashford for Son. I'd definitely go Udogie for Bulldog. Donation from Llewellyn. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, first of all. Udogie for Bulldog or Rashford for Son. I do really like Udogie for Bulldog because, first of all, Udogie versus Bulldog is sort of correcting an issue in your team where Bulldog is injured and he can't play. And then in terms of Rashford versus Son, I do think it is a bit of a luxury transfer, right? What I would also ask is, what is your defense this week? Do you need Udogie to play? If you feel like you have three very competent defenders, then play Udogie. Play without Udogie. But Bulldog is an issue. He's probably going to fall as well. So you'd alleviate that. As far as Rashford versus Son, I would ask the question, are you daring to captain Son? If you are daring to captain Son, then there could be a lot of upside there. I don't even hate the idea, to be honest, of going for both. So it's up to you. I think both are very strong, very reasoned moves. As I said, it's more for me a question of looking at your own defense. Do you think Udogie would actually improve it a lot? And if it does, then do the Udogie move. I think it's a bit safer. And then if you actually are risk seeking, then go for a Son captaincy. Sell Johnson for Kaminsky. Yeah, that could make sense. Turn on slow mode. Turn on slow mode for you. You're asking too many questions. Who to start between Chilwell, Udogie, Gusto, Trippier, and Estupiñán? I'd go Chilwell, I'd go Udogie, I'd go Trippier. That's my honest answer. 3 out of 5. Mystic Monkey says, should I buy Maddison for Sterling? I probably wouldn't, honestly. I'd probably bring Son in, but I'd probably not bring Maddison in. Jackson to Alvarez or Foden to Maddison. Honestly, if I was being completely honest to you, I don't like any of those moves. I think you can hold. I think those are luxury moves entirely. But I already have Maddison. Should I get Son? I don't think it should be a big determining factor. I think the question always should be, are you going to captain Son? And if you are, then go for Son if you want to. Gusto or Saliba? I've gone for Gusto. Sorry, man. I'm going to have to put you in a timeout because you are spamming a little bit. Darwin or Jesus? I'd probably go Jesus, a bit safer, but actually I like Højlund as a pick a bit more. Thomas, no problem. Jakub says keep Bruno or Foden or transfer in Maddison or save the transfer. So I would definitely keep Bruno. I wouldn't transfer in either of them for Maddison. Look, because Foden still has a wonderful Game Week 7. A wonderful Game Week 6. Why transfer out Foden? I'm not really seeing the idea, to be honest. Do you intend to keep Sterling till his fixture run ends? Honestly, yes. Thoughts on Kulusevski? I mean, in worst case scenario, I just wildcard out. Wildcard this week, not for me, but if you want a wildcard, I can understand it. Just depends on your team situation. Should I take Martinelli or Foden to get out of Maddison? I'd probably get out of Martinelli just because his minutes are a little bit weak. Whereas with Foden, I think the minutes look quite strong right now. So I would actually happily own Foden over this run. Is Guardiola starting? I can't say so. Shout out from Malaysia. I appreciate it. I'm actually from Hong Kong, so I mean, originally quite close from you and around the world. I live in London now, but shout out to you as well. Should I sell Salah for Son? No, I wouldn't sell Salah for Son and upgrade Garnacho to Jota. Why do you want Jota this week though? I don't see Jota as being a good pick at all, even though Garnacho is not the best. My best wild card. I mean, okay, let's just try it. Let's just try a wild card. Let's get a double game week keeper going. Why not? Need to sort of see. Yeah, maybe Kaminsky Arola. Saliba. These people are all leaving. Let's get some Trippier in here. Let's get Cash in here. I'm going Cash, by the way, because Guehi's injured as well. If you guys remember my wildcard video. And then I'll probably get Giles. But then I probably have to replace someone else. I'd probably go Sonny. Maybe I might keep Sterling. I don't know actually about that. Trippier. Giles, Cash. Probably go Shar. So these three players play the next three. Cash can play this week, so we can bench this week. Udogi plays this week. Trippier plays this week. Shar on the bench this week. Giles on the bench as well. Morris on the bench. Maybe you can go Foster as well. I mean, if you want to save a bit of money there. Sterling you could replace. I mean, I can't go Rashford now, can I? It's a tough one. Then you also have to think about plans to Salah, but then the plan to Salah could simply just be going out of Holland, right? So you can go Watkins. Guess you can maybe keep Saka. If you prefer Saka over Sterling, you could do that. Something like this, maybe? Something like this could be an interesting wild card. So, yeah, I mean, Kaminsky covers well, covers the City Liverpool half decently. And then you got this. I mean, it depends on Kaminsky game week 8 as well. Tough fixture for Spurs, to be honest. Doesn't rotate the best. It's a little bit off the cuff, but still, I guess you could happily maybe just play Areola there. Hopefully he puts a great shot-stopping performance. This is probably the wild card I would think about. No more Chelsea. Yeah, I'd actually bin off my Chelsea players, to be honest. But that's only if I had a wild card, right? Because the way I think about wild cards is I'm thinking all the way until game week 12, like as a minimum. So I think you can keep Gusto, for example, like, because if he plugs a hole in for you for the next few weeks, he could be worthwhile if you want to sort of upgrade, maybe replace Giles with Gusto, maybe make some upgrades elsewhere. You could have, for example, gone Rashford in that previous draft too. But yeah, things like that. I know Leno rotates well with Areola. The only thing I mentioned in terms of Kaminsky is just because we get the double game week fixture, which would be a little bit better than Leno. But Leno feels safer too. Leno definitely has a better game week 5, if we want to put it that way. Hey, Alan, hope you're doing well. Bro, stop spamming. Yeah, Sebastian, if you could just... should you sell Salah for Son? Absolutely not. I'm sorry, I'm going to put you in a timeout as well. Start Gabriel or get Shar. So, BL, that's your question. I do actually like starting Gabriel. Gusto or Guardiola? I'd probably go Gusto because I don't know if Guardiola will play. Short term, Alvarez or Jackson. I mean, short term, I'd probably still pick Alvarez. Thoughts on Eze? I think he's a great pick. I don't think you have any reason to be scared or in fear of, let's say, Eze being a bad pick. I think he's really good, actually. In fact, given the fact that he's also gotten these price falls, he becomes really, really interesting when we're going to be crafting wildcards in the future. Who to start between João Pedro, Porras, or Estupiñán? I'd probably start João Pedro. Ederson or Turner, I'd probably start Ederson. Captain Son or Holland, I'd probably captain Son, then Holland. Johnson to Flecken / Leno / Sanchez, probably Leno. Because at least you can capture some good short-term upside. Hey Mal, hope you're doing well. DM'd you on Twitter. Absolutely, I'll check it out. Thank you so much for the donation as well, and appreciate you being around. Nice to see you on the live stream. So, your team, 2 free transfers, which is a great position. Honestly, I think Akanji's a problem, right? Because when we think about this week, we're going to be playing Chilwell, Gabriel, Udogie, which is actually fine. But then we do want maybe a plan towards a Newcastle defender. You could actually wait for that transfer next week. Akanji will probably start anyways. Do we play Akanji over Gabriel? That's the question I have in my mind. So you've got kind of Gameweek 6 covered as Estupiñán. I probably wouldn't make a keeper transfer because you got Areola, which is awesome. I think you actually are what I describe as someone in a luxury position. I would consider Rashford to Son, genuinely, in your position. Yeah. Another way you can also think about things like this is, you know, because you own, let's say, a lot of Chelsea, you could maybe also just move out of, I don't really want to call moving out of Jackson, but you could think about it. But the problem is who to downgrade to. I really think you're in a position of either let's say, bring in a Newcastle defender, right? But Botman, we don't know if he's actually going to start, so that's a problem. So I would actually save the additional free transfer for next week, so you have 2 again. I'd probably actually do the punt, Rashford to Son captaincy, is probably what I would suggest in your position, because I feel like you're ahead of me in terms of your team position, right? I had to bring a free transfer to get Udogie this week. You've already gotten Udogie. He's probably the safest, sort of best, like, high upside pick this week from a defensive point of view. Yeah, so I actually like Rashford to Son for you. And then what you can do as well is you can just move next week into a Newcastle defender, as I suggested. It is a big punt, but I think Son's got an amazing fixture. Son's got an amazing fixture. I mean, you'll see a lot of great managers are going for Son this week. The people who are in the luxury position that you are, or even less luxurious. For example, I think Praz is going there. I think Flapjack might be. I need to see what Flapjack is doing. Oh, sorry. Probably shouldn't be showing DMs. Marku, this is one of the top 50 managers of all time on a lot of Hall of Fame lists going for a Son captaincy. You know, a lot of top managers are going for Son. But, for example, Marku is also in a 2 free transfer position. So, it's tough. I would say, if it makes sense and you're in a luxurious position, I would do it. But otherwise, I'd probably skip the Son move. But the thing is, when you look at your team, it's so good that you can actually afford it. Yeah, Akanji and Jackson off next week are good moves both. And honestly, by that time, we might get a little bit more information on Højlund. We might get a little bit more information as well. Or you could even just go Morris next week, right? Because Morris actually has a good fixture next week. He's at home to Wolves. And then you've got double game week 7. So Morris next week could be a good transfer for you. Could actually maybe let you get Trippier. Is that possible? I would actually calculate in your head, can you get Trippier next week, depending on the moves that you make? So I would probably use that to ask myself whether I'd like to go out of Rashford or Bruno in the short term. I'm assuming you're also going to keep Saka as well, since you're a gunner. But obviously, Game Week 8 is another good time to, let's say, move out of someone like a Saka. Focal's gone Fernandes to Son. Very interesting. You know what? I've actually got to do my little tweet for my team. Have we gotten 0 leaks so far? I'll try to answer as many questions as possible. Very quick questions. Eden says, should I take out Martinelli or Sterling to bring in Son? I'd probably go to Martinelli, to be honest. Best goalkeeper long term, I think Areola. Start Gusto Estupiñán. I'd probably start Gusto, actually. Rashford for Fernandes. For Son, I'd probably go Rashford. Play Flecken or Onana. I play Onana. Also, any idea if Jota will start? Sorry, man, I don't. But someone actually said earlier that Darwin could be benched, so maybe that could be the case. Odegaard to Son, I would definitely do that move. Do you plan to bring in Morris for Game Week 7? Right now, I do. Light says, if I already have Madison in, is it still worth bringing in Son for Odegaard? I would still do it, yes. Wisa, a bad hold. Wisa is not a bad hold. You're right. Everton and Nottingham Forest, fantastic games. One free transfer, Finn says. He's got Foden already, Estupiñán and Diaz. Thoughts on a transfer? Look, I'd probably go... I mean, all the players that you picked are good, right? Estupiñán can be good for Game Week 6. Foden and Diaz both good for Game Week 6 as well. I'd probably do transfers elsewhere, or I would just roll it. TAC 943. Should I start Mbumo or Estupiñán? I would go Mbumo. Sam says, you got a midfield of Eze, Foden, Rashford, Bruno, and Saka. I just don't know who to sell for Son. I mean, can you go out of all of them for Son? What's the situation there? I'd probably go to Rashford if you're kind of stuck with money and budget. Lewis says, hey, Fran, am I wrong wanting to start Cash over Chilwell? I mean, not really. I think it's quite close. Itachi says, which three should I play among Gusto, Saliba, Estupiñán, Pedro? I'd probably play Pedro first. I'd probably play Gusto, Saliba. Tom says, FPL Caesar. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much, Tom. Nice to see you around. And yeah, lovely to catch you actually for a live stream, fortunately. Archit says, start Morris or Mbumo. I'd probably start Morris, actually. Cash, Bassi or Estupiñán. Cash. Which three should I play amongst Gusto, Saliba, Estupiñán, Pedro? I think I've answered the question already. Which goalie, any price? Areola. But you actually need to rotate with Areola. So Leno, Areola is a very good pair. If you want to go for one transfer, I'd probably go with Leno. In a short-term transfer, I think Kaminsky is actually not a bad idea as well. Panic. Yeah, guys, lock in your moves, please. Any picks better than Cash at the same price? I mean, I would still say Udogi. What's wrong with Matoma and Rashford? Why everyone's selling them? I mean, Matoma, I don't think is that good of a pick. I think Rashford, people just want Son at the end of the day. That's the reason. Hey, Rashab, hope you're doing well. Keep smashing it, Malachi. Thank you so much. Start João Pedro, Estupiñán, João Pedro. Is Dan Burn a viable option? Yes, he is. I'm just going to quickly tweet my team, though. Sorry. Leno and Turner. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Leno and Areola is obviously ideal in the future. But you can obviously bring in Areola a little bit later. Kaminsky, same as Tree. So what do you mean by Tree? I'm a little bit lost there. All right. Lock in your moves, guys. Don't get stressed. Try to actually go with the move that you initially planned. Otherwise, you're not going to be satisfied. So I hope you don't mean that Kaminsky is the same as nothing. Appearance points are a thing. Leno, I would go Leno over Allison. I just wouldn't spend that much money on keepers, honestly. Okay. Let's quickly compose the tweet. Are you crazy? You've Captain Awani. I mean, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? Do you want me to say you're not crazy? Yes, of course it's crazy. Gameweek 5. Let's put that lock emoji in. 1FT. Sure to Udogi. What rank am I? I'm 15k. Right, sorry. World. Good luck to all you guys in the world. Let's see what happens. I'm expecting this to be a terrible week, and hopefully Saliba does not keep a clean sheet. Saliba or Pedro, it's a little too late. It's a little too late. Wildcard locked in for Nuclear Atoms. Is there a name on the back of the kit? No, there's not. But I would like to get Jude's name on the kit if he plays out, an incredible season. Appreciate that, Jaden. Thank you, Tom, as well. Good luck to you. Hope you're gonna smash it this game week. I've actually got to make some fan team moves. You've actually reminded me some fan team needs to be done. But actually, I think I'm rolling on fan team, and I might have already set it up early, so I need to have a look at that in the future. But yeah, I mean, good luck to all of you guys as well. That's for 14k carried by no, I mean, I got carried by Alvarez last week, if you remember, right? 14 points from Alvarez, 14 points from Gusto. So I've been carried by them. And also Mbumo carried me for game week 1 and 2. He's the one who was keeping me afloat all these weeks. So, yeah. Yo, someone's Salah captaining. That's mad. Good luck. Yeah, rolling on fan team is actually, I mean, that's a nice thing about fan team. It's like you can kind of forget it. As long as you put your team in the right order, you can kind of roll and then just be like, oh, okay, I can make better moves in the future. The consistent boy Alvarez. Yeah, I don't have Sun this week. Oh man, so many people captaining Sun. Wild. I'm not gonna lie, and I hope I don't offend anyone here, but I really do hope Sun blanks. I'm so sorry. I will be doing UCL fantasy though. Wow, the amount of people who've gone Sun captaincy. Praz actually not captaining Sun. Interesting. Honestly, I would have preferred captaining Sun, but I can understand. So this is Jan, one of the greatest analytical managers. He's not going for Sun this week, but he also went for Sterling last week, so he was in a tough spot. I do follow quite a few analytics managers, if I'm honest. So you can see clearly Sun captaincy became a very popular move. Even some legendary managers as well, like Cruyff. A lot of Sun captaincy. Marku, as I mentioned, another legendary manager with the Sun captaincy. That will be interesting. I mean, if Sun doesn't start in the center, that would be huge. But honestly, I did think the move made a lot of sense. And, that's just how it is. John Ballantyne, another, I think, a top 10 manager of all time. Also Sun captaincy. It's going to be scary, actually, owning Haaland, apparently. Not for cowards. I mean, I just didn't want to take a Sun hit, but to be quite honest. What's the Real Madrid triple up on fantasy? We'll have a look at that. Shamshon, the Korean. What is Shamshon? I mean, is this sort of a play on Sun? Thoughts on having to start both Wisa and S2? I mean, it's not the best situation, but still, you've got Wisa for the next 2 game weeks, which is good. You got Whisper to cap Jesus. Did you cap? Okay, good luck. I hope you didn't captain Jesus personally. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Kind of mad. Kind of mad. But yeah, that's the deadline. I hope you guys have had a wonderful stream so far. Oh, I'm sorry. I've not actually seen the Arabic commentator. I'll have to check that out. But yeah, I think that's it for the stream this week. Would like to see you guys the next one. I won't be doing a watch along because I think I've just got some weekend plans. I actually haven't really had a break. So I arrived last Sunday to London after a 2-week vacation and then immediately went to work on Monday. So I haven't really had a break so far. I'm going to try to take a bit of a break and enjoy myself. But it was nice to actually see you guys on the live stream. And I thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to the new members. Thank you for the people who donated as well. And I hope you guys have a lovely weekend and the best of luck with your fantasy teams. And we'll see you guys as well on Game Week 6. So really nice that we don't have an international break. just yeah, take care and see you guys in a bit.